I think it matters with the age, with the industry, but not particularly with the general public.
When we were teenagers, it was like you read The Enemy and The Melody Maker, and what they said was cool, you thought was cool. And you know, if you were a bit left field, then you'd listen to John Peel yourself and decide. And like, you know, in those days, they just used to take the piss out of any band that had members that were over the age of 30, and it was just like, yeah, go away, Grandad. Do you think that's changed now? Do you think you can actually be an older or more mature artist because people can judge for themselves? They don't care about it.
Because of the way that music fans have grown up in a different generation, you know, like the 77 generation, for instance, that were like in their 19 to 20s, mid-20s, are kind of like the older generation of music listeners now. And so I think things haven't changed so much in rock music in that amount of time. You know, I mean, like, you know, before, like, it was like Elvis, and it was like basically there was a definite divide between teenagers and adults. But like, you know, since that kind of like, since those generations have moved on, and it's kind of like, I guess probably from when punk came out, really, I would guess that, like, because it was quite harsh and then it became mainstream, music can be seen from any age, you know, appreciated at any age, and it doesn't matter who's making it, really, anymore. You know, I mean, look at Black Sabbath, they've just like reformed, and they're all quite, you know, they're all quite old-ish. You know, they're probably as old as the Stones, or, you know, I mean, the Rolling Stones, I mean, like just any old Stones. But, you know, a lot of people are looking forward to that reunion at every age, so I don't think it particularly matters. I mean, obviously they've got like a huge history of stuff.
Do you think
and we're a relatively new band that are over 30. But I think we've obviously hit a nerve with a few different age groups. You know, maybe ones that weren't around that like the sort of music we do when other bands that we get grouped in with, possibly, were around. They weren't around, so we're around now, so they can enjoy it, and we're kind of quite authentic. And I think maybe it's the same thing for the older generation. They kind of think, well, you know, they obviously grew up on the same music that we've been listening to, but they're actually doing it, and they're doing it now.
Do you think file sharing just sort of broke that down? Because, you know, kids can go, oh, he's got my favourite album, and oh, he's got something called Black Sabbath, I'll get that as well, because he's obviously going to like the same kind of music as me, and they've suddenly discovered.
I think, yeah, I think that happens from, like, when you get into music, and then you start reading about what influenced the music that you like, then you go back and you start listening to that to kind of see whether or not you get that same thing. So you kind of being more connected to, say, like, you know, Kurt Cobain was into like Kiss and Black Sabbath and the Melvins. So other people probably went to like listen to Kiss, Black Sabbath and Melvins to see whether or not they'd feel more connected to what Kurt Cobain was doing and what it was all about and stuff. So I don't think it really matters what age you're at for anything, whether you're making it or listening to it. I think, like, you know, it can be everything can be across the board now. I think it's like, it's pretty much open for anybody to make music, or, you know, but when it comes to live, you know, it depends whether you're going to be jumping around and stuff, you know. I mean, we put on quite an energetic live show, which I think is where most of our reputations come from, is from that, and being able to, you know, the music's come across quite well as well. But, you know, you put like, I guess people sort of perceive jumping around with like youth or the youth or youthful bands, you know, and stuff. So I don't think it matters about the age.
First one was Kaiser Chiefs, and then it was Block Party, and then there was another band we don't cover who they were, and then it was Razorlight, and it was, you know, £5 to get in.
But I do
It
think
was really
we're now just
busy,
coming
but
up
none
the
of them
other
at
side of
that
the
point
valley,
were,
and I think the
no one
process-
knew who was going to do well.